Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, says that there is broad political support for a multi-billion euro military initiative to aid Ukraine. She is leading the effort, which aims to bypass a potential veto from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and provide more support to Kyiv on the front lines. Our Kyiv correspondent, Angela Skujin, has the latest.
The EU's High Representative Kaja Kallas will aim to lobby EU foreign affairs ministers in Brussels on Monday to support a military initiative for Ukraine. Now, this package was initially tabled in February by the EU's top foreign policy boss, but was defeated at an extraordinary European Council summit. Only 26 of the 27 member states from the EU voted in support of the initiative. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán voted down the package, which was aimed at comprising roughly 20 billion euros worth of military aid, spanning 1.5 million rounds of ammunition to missile and air defence systems. But the package is not dead. We know that the High Representative has tabled it again, and she told reporters in the Belgian capital this morning that there was broad support for the measure. Let's take a listen to what she had to say regarding this announcement.
There's a broad political support for that initiative, which is good. But there's a lot of details that need to be worked out because there are also defense ministers that need to have a say, and we have a meeting of defense ministers. But it's important that the Council said that we need to move swiftly, and that is what we are doing.
So the aim today is to see what buy-in there will be from those member states. We know that High Representative wants to get unanimous support for the package, which is estimated at being valued at almost 40 billion euros now. But if she can't convince Budapest to support the measure, there is a general understanding that those member states will agree to the terms of the military aid outside of the machinations of the EU. But we'll wait and see what comes out of these high-level talks today in the Belgian capital. There will be a press conference at 2:30 with this matter being voted on formally on Thursday by those heads of state. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he plans to talk with Vladimir Putin likely on Tuesday. Speaking aboard Air Force One on Sunday, Trump says his administration is moving closer to peace in Ukraine. He added that land and power plants will be part of the discussion with the Russian leader.
We learned a lot. We're doing pretty well, I think, with Russia. And see, we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. And a lot of work's been done over the weekend. We want to see if we can bring that war to an end. Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but I think we have a very good chance. Well, I think we'll, be talking about land. It's a lot of land. It's a lot different than it was before the wars, And we'll be talking about land. We'll be talking about power plants. That's a big question. But I think we have a lot of it already discussed very much by both sides.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described a recent meeting between U.S. envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff and Vladimir Putin. In a CBS interview, Rubio called the talks promising, but acknowledged the complexity of ending the war in Ukraine.
The U.S. Secretary of State emphasized that the priority of the negotiations remains achieving a ceasefire before reaching a sustainable solution. Rubio, however, did say that even reaching a ceasefire will be difficult, given the twists and turns on the battlefields and interests at stake. According to him, Plan A is to get the shooting to stop, then have everybody at the negotiating table. At the same time, Rubio said that if such a scenario will be unattainable, the United States will use shuttle diplomacy, just as Henry Kissinger did when ending the Yom Kippur War of 1973.
Thank you.
On Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appointed Major General Andriy Hanatov as the new Chief of General Staff. In his nightly address, Zelensky said Hanatov's main task will be improving the combat readiness of Ukrainian troops. The president also said he spoke with Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Karny and announced that Kyiv is preparing for the upcoming Ramstein Group Summit in Brussels.
Today, I made personnel changes in the armed forces of Ukraine. Together with the Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky and Minister of Defense Rustem Umerov, we decided that the new Chief of the General Staff will be Andrei Ignatov, a combat guy. His task is to maximize the combat experience of our brigades in planning both defensive and offensive operations, as well as to actively develop the corps system. I just spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. I thanked him for supporting Ukraine, our sovereignty and territorial integrity, for Canada's participation in our joint work with partners in order to protect our people, to bring peace closer and guarantee reliable security. We discussed sanctions against Russia, particularly targeting Russia's tanker fleet, its banks, and its state revenue-generating schemes.
The nightclub in North Macedonia, where a deadly fire broke out, was operating with a falsified license, according to the country's prime minister. At least 59 people were killed and 155 injured when the blaze swept through the venue on Saturday. The Prime Minister said the license was issued illegally in March of last year, but had received an official stamp of approval from North Macedonia's Ministry of Economy. The fire broke out during a live concert with around 1,500 people in attendance. Many of the injured were transported to neighboring Bulgaria for treatment. Families of the concertgoers gather outside hospitals, anxiously waiting news about their loved ones. Eyewitnesses describe a stampede as people try to escape the flames. Authorities have launched an investigation into the cause of the fire and the club's licensing irregularities. Initial reports suggest pyrotechnics used during the show may have sparked the deadly blaze.
If there are no standards and rules, the businesses should not be operating. None of the parties responsible should avoid the law, the justice, and the punishment. We cannot disrespect the innocent victims.
Here is the forged license. It was issued on March 13, 2024, signed by the former State Secretary of the Ministry of Economy. The same license also looks like this. The numbers in the archive are false, and the document for the nightclub was archived as a foreign investment. More than 20 people are suspected in this case. 15 of the 20 are already in police custody. We have detained a former state secretary in the Ministry of the Economy, a department head at the same ministry, the former manager of the Agency for Rescue and Protection, as well as 3 employees of the same agency.
After months of protests, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić says, "We got the message." Demonstrators are demanding legal and political accountability, blaming Vučić for a tragic accident in Novi Sad last November. 15 people died when a train station canopy collapsed, and protesters say corruption within his government was to blame.
We got the message. Everyone in power needs to understand the message. When so many people are protesting, we are going to have to change and learn from it. On the other hand, I also hope that others have understood the message coming from majority in Serbia, that the citizens of Serbia do not want color revolutions, that the citizens of Serbia do not want violence, and that the citizens of Serbia want to change power through elections.
This whole system is corrupt down to its very core, and this presents a big problem for the general population. This corruption maybe leads to higher prices because of supermarket mafias raising prices to earn more money, all in coalition with the government. So this corruption is really a part of our everyday lives, and this is unmanageable.
We're here to support students, to support justice, and not to provide violence, not to provocate people here. We're just here for the peace, for the love, and that's everything.
There must be some democratic influences in power, not to be in hands of one party and the one man. democracy, I think. It is what was till now the only way to express different opinions, but to make agreement about state going ahead. They started to believe that life in Serbia is possible, not to go some other countries when they finish their schools. That's what's happening now. But it won't be easy, I think.
I can say for sure that our fight will definitely continue until we see results and until we see full results.
Maria Semenova from the European Council on Foreign Affairs said the Serbian government has significant influence over the country's media. Despite Serbia's status as an EU candidate, she noted that public debate is largely shaped by the ruling government.
We know that Serbia is a candidate EU country, and as such, it has to apply to certain standards like rule of law, good governance, media freedom, and we are seeing that in Serbia, especially, the media freedom is struggling. We know that the president and the government has a very big influence over the media environment in Serbia. So inevitably, any elections in the country are basically influenced by the public debate, which is very much driven by the ruling government.
Former Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili was sentenced on Monday to 4.5 years in prison for illegally crossing the Georgian border. This adds to a series of convictions for the politician who has been in jail since 2021. With this latest ruling, Saakashvili's total prison sentence now stands at 12.5 years, according to the judge. The earliest he could be released is April 2034. Just last week, he was sentenced to 9 years for embezzling state budget funds. He was already serving a 6-year sentence for abuse of power after being jailed upon his return to Georgia in 2021. Much of his time behind bars has been spent in a prison hospital. Now, Saakashvili and his supporters claim the charges against him are politically motivated. He has staged several hunger strikes while in prison. Canada's newly appointed Prime Minister Mark Carney has arrived in Paris for a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. The visit is part of a broader European tour that will also take him to London.
Carney, a former central banker who turned 60 just yesterday, is set to meet Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace at noon. His meeting with the French president will mark his first official foreign visit. Following talks in France, Carney will head to England. There, the Canadian Prime Minister will pay a visit to 10 Downing Street for a discussion with his British counterpart, Keir Starmer. The main topic of the meeting will be the diversification of trade and coordination of a response to tariffs imposed by Donald Trump's administration.
This Monday marks St. Patrick's Day, the internationally celebrated Irish holiday. It honors St. Patrick and the arrival of Christianity in Ireland, while also celebrating Irish culture and heritage. Across the United States, home to a large Irish diaspora, parades and festivities are taking place. To mark the occasion, the Irish Prime Minister visited Donald Trump at the White House. And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.